Let us move to equity instruments. Equity securities represent residual ownership claim of the asset of the firm. That is, debt holders are paid first and equity holders share the balance available. Equity securities are riskiest instrument among the financial instruments. To reduce the risk, the law allows the issue of equity shares with limited liability. It means the equity shareholders' liabilities are limited to the par value of the shares. There are two types of equity securities: common stock or ordinary equity shares, and the next one is the preference equity shares. Common stockholders are the residual owners. While the risk is high when the firm is not doing well, they earn a high return when the firm is doing well. Equity shareholders get periodic dividend for their investments if the company is earning adequate profit. But it is not mandatory for the company to pay dividend even if the company is earning profit. The firms retain a part of the profit to undertake expansion and new projects. The value of equity share increases over the years, reflecting the growth of the company. Though equity holders collectively own the company, it is not practical for them to directly participate in the management of the company. They elect the board of directors, who in turn hire professional managers to run the company. Equity shares in general carry voting rights. By exercising the voting rights, equity holder decides many things related to the management of the company and business. Corporate laws in many countries allow issue of non-voting shares or differential voting shares. These shareholders are on par with the other shareholders having the voting rights, except on voting issue. For giving up the voting rights either completely or partially, they are compensated with additional dividend. For example, a company can issue a Class A common stock with full voting rights and each share carries 1 vote. The company can also issue Class B common shares, but each stock carries 0.1 vote, that is 1 vote for every 10 shares. The company may issue the Class B shares at discount or offer higher dividend, like 2 times dividend of common stockholders' dividend, or both. Non-voting shares or differential voting shares are not popular in India. In 2008, Tata Motors issued differential voting shares that carries 0.1 voting rights, but these shareholders get 500 basic points, that is 5% additional dividend over and above the dividend paid to the other equity holders. DVRs are generally sold at discount and at times as high as 40%. Only few Indian companies have issued DVR to public and listed in the stock exchanges. In addition to Tata Motors, for example, Future Enterprises, Gujarat NRE Coke, Jain Irrigation have issued DVR. Companies issuing non-voting shares or differential voting rights shares to protect the rights of the existing shareholders, particularly the promoters of the company. The challenge is the valuation of voting rights and compensating the same either in pricing or through dividend. In addition to common stock, companies also issue preference stock or preference shares. Preference shares are not normally issued to the public, but are placed privately to the institutions and others. Preferred stockholders receive a fixed dividend and return of capital after a certain number of years. Considering only the fixed return and repayment of capital, it is equal to a bond. However, preference shareholders cannot insist payment of a dividend or a return of capital. There is no preference on this. Their preference is restricted to the preference over equity shareholders for receiving dividend or return of capital in the event of winding up of the business. In other words, equity holders cannot be paid any dividend without paying the current and past dividend of the preference shareholders and distribute assets to the equity holders without repaying the capital of the preference shareholders. If the company is doing well, the preference shareholders will not be able to participate on the growth. The dividend rate should be high to attract the investor to subscribe the preference shares. A few companies issued convertible preference shares instead of convertible bonds and debentures to avoid litigation in the event of company not able to pay interest or principal. Dividend received from preference shares also enjoying certain tax concession in some countries.